Hey, thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Mic'd Up. Some monster news that no one saw coming. We're going to talk plenty of Chiefs. The Royals, man, it was good for a while, and then it was really bad for a bit. We will get into some Royals news, Chiefs news. We're going to talk with Matt Derrick. Brendan Dzwierzynski stops by, play a little Oddsmakers. We will get to all of that coming up here on this edition of Mic'd Up on a Tuesday. Jake Lamont, and we got Kyle Manthe filling in for Fulton Caster. Fulton still off trying to fish, and maybe he's trying to survive off of his fish. If that's the case, then he's eating a lot of bluegill, it sounds like. So appreciate Kyle for stepping in and being the pinch hitter for Fulton Caster. We do have Royals baseball coming up tonight. Zach Greinke towing the rubber against the boys for the boys in blue against the Miami Marlins. So we got lots to discuss. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Outside of Speak Up, 785-272-9429. Let us know your thoughts on our Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone line. And check us out on our YouTube page. Go to youtube.com/@Sports on 580. Very simple. You just go to YouTube, search Sports on 580. You can check us out on our website, 580wwew.com. So simple, so easy to get in touch with us on this Tuesday. There's a lot to get to today. There really, really is, including some news that I don't know if we've ever had this big of a shock when it comes to the sports world. I really don't. To a specific sport, I guess I should say. But today, I'm here at work and trying to, we're going to talk about the Royals game last night and what went down. Carlos Hernandez looked good. The offense is up 4-0. Things are going well. And then all of a sudden, from CNBC, the PGA Tour and Live Golf are merging. I was like, wait a minute. What? Are you serious with that? And it is, in fact, 100% true. The CEO of the PGA Tour, Jay Monahan, the leader of it, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, and the leader of the Public Investment Fund, which runs the Live Golf Tour, went on CNBC and said what was going on. They are going to combine tours and make a unnamed entity. We don't know what it's going to be. I don't know. Could be PGA Live Golf. I have no idea. Nobody knows. But they are combining to merge the PGA Tour and the Live Golf League. And when I say nobody knew about this, I mean no one knew about this. Top golfers in the world didn't know about this, from at least a few of them. We have not heard from others. But according to everyone who is in the know in the golf world, nobody knew this was happening. Greg Norman didn't even know this was happening, and he was the guy who was the face in charge of Live Golf. Like, he didn't even know. Colin Morikawa and the PGA golfers had no idea this was happening. None whatsoever. And all of a sudden, at 9 o'clock this morning, the PGA Tour agrees to merge with the Saudi-backed rival Live Golf. And I don't even know what's going to happen in the future. I don't think anybody knows. Even TV executives of the PGA Tour have no idea what is going on right now. From an executive at a TV partner of the PGA Tour. We just learned about this. How is that? How does this even come about? So the first thing is this, is what is what's happening? And here's the best way that I can explain it. This is what Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, sent to the PGA Tour members. He says this: through a framework agreement, the Public Investment Fund is contributing its golf-related commercial businesses and rights, which is Live Golf, along with a significant financial investment towards minority equity ownership of a new collectively held for-profit LLC that will be named at a later date. The PGA Tour's commercial business rights as well as those of the DP World Tour. I will remain commissioner of the PGA Tour. The public investment governor, Yasir Al-Rahmanian, will join the PGA Tour policy board. Says here, the PGA Tour will appoint a majority of the board and hold a majority voting interest in the combined entity. So the PGA Tour still controls things, but the Public Investment Fund will make a financial investment to become the premier corporate sponsor of the PGA Tour. So here is what I gather. Something had to change the tune of Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour. Because for essentially 2 years, Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour said, don't go to Live. You're terrible if you go to Live. Why are you doing this? You are bad. Don't take their money. Stay here. We are legacy. The PGA Tour is what got you this position to begin with. Are you going to go back on the person that got you here? And you had all of these golfers, the Rory McIlroys and everybody saying, yeah, I'm staying with the PGA Tour. My loyalty lies there. And you had other golfers who said, no, I'm taking the money. The Phil Mickelsons, the Dustin Johnsons, the Brooks Koepkas, those of the world. So Jay Monahan and the PGA Tour are like, no, don't go there. Don't go there. Hey, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have designated events. We're going to have larger purses. You're going to make more money than you've ever had before. Just don't go to Live. And now the PGA Tour is merging with Live. So what happened? What occurred to basically go all Benedict Arnold, full betrayal of your PGA Tour players? What had to happen? Now, in their big giant release, it said that all of the litigation and the lawsuits are no more between Liv and the PGA Tour. That's gone. It is settled. So a part of me says, was there something that the PGA Tour didn't want to get out there? Was there something in that they were petrified of getting out? That's one thing that I thought. Okay. Live Golf has put in close to $2 billion worth into Live Golf. They're not making any money. They're not. Their television deal is the CW, okay? And nobody watches the CW. More people are watching Bluey than the CW, okay? Nobody's showing up to their events. Nobody cares about Live Golf. They don't get any viewing online. They don't. I don't care who you are. If you are, Jeff Bezos, if you are Bill Gates, if you are the Walton family, or you are the Saudi-backed, public investment fund. Rich people don't just give away their money and not expect a return on investment. Even if you've got more money than money is money, according to what we know about the public investment fund, you are still going to want something back in return. So maybe Liv was like, look, we're not making any money. This is the way we can do what we want to do. So what had to occur? Or was it just simple as this? The public investment fund gave an offer to the PGA Tour they couldn't refuse. Something had to work because Jay Monahan right now looks like the biggest hypocrite in the sports world, maybe of all time. He was even invoking 9/11 at one point last year. Last year at this time, he was invoking 9/11 on the RBC, which is up in Canada right now. He did in a interview. He said, "Stay here, don't go with them." And now the PGA Tour and the Public Investment Fund are merging. So something had to have gone down. Was the number when it comes to the money that the Public Investment Fund is going to invest into the PGA Tour was just so much that Jay Monahan was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And nobody knew. I mean, nobody knew about this. Pro golfers didn't know. TV executives didn't know. Greg Norman didn't even know about this. According to the television interview on CNBC, Greg Norman was notified what was going on right before this. So if you are the Rory McIlroys, if you are the Jordan Spieths, the John Rahms, the Patrick Cantlays, the Scotty Schefflers, who didn't take the live money, you've got to be furious. How much money did Dustin Johnson, Phil, and Brooks Koepka make up front right away? Does their contract still work? There's reported that Brooks Koepka got $125 million to join Live. Now they're going to merge? How is that going to work? Jay Monahan, there was a report that Liv offered Rory $500 million or $300 million to join Liv. He said no because he was going to back the PGA Tour and back what they were standing for. And then your boss, Jay Monahan, goes completely behind your back, stabs you, et tu, Brute? Like, this is incredible what is going on in the golf world from one side or the other. How it's going to go about, I have no idea. But it sure sounds like both ended up, I think, both in the grand scheme of things, will be happy with what occurs. And here's why. Okay? The Public Investment Fund was never interested in golf, by the way. They just want, obviously, we've talked about this, the Saudi blood money and what they are. They're not great people. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They are awful people. They were never interested in golf. They just wanted a way to get into the global world and more business diversification, if you will. They wanted another avenue of opportunity to grow. The PGA Tour, if you just go with the golf aspect of it, gets stars back together. It's a unified tour. Oh, yeah, and by the way, they get a truckload of money that they now never have to worry about, because if you got $2 billion just to throw in on a startup and you don't care what happens, that is the money that not many people have. So the PGA Tour, just on a base level, gets everybody on the same page. They get the money backing, and it's a unified sport. The Public Investment Fund gets exactly what they want as well. The difference is, and we've talked about this, there's a lot of people who have most people have a price. What was the price for Jay Monahan's soul, essentially? Because there is no way to sugarcoat this. And Jay Monahan looks like the biggest traitor if you were defending the PGA Tour. And Live Golf had no idea this was going on. According to Alan Shipnuck of the Fire Pit Collective, he said this: just talked to a key insider at Live. They had no idea this was coming. There hasn't been any communication. Players, agents are learning about the merger from tweets and news reports. Some of the PGA Tour cloak and dagger stuff from Monahan and the PIF. Nobody saw this coming. If you are Ricky Fowler, Rory, Spieth, Morikawa, and Ram, you turn down so much money to defend your company, and then your company basically just now said, nope, we're going to go with the competitor. I don't know how they don't fight Jay Monahan. The amount of money that's invested, and I truly believe that the Public Investment Fund didn't care about golf. They didn't. They never did. They just wanted an avenue to get into the business world, but because they're such terrible people, this was their way. And everybody's got a price. So I have no idea how if you are Rory, or even the guys that you don't really know a ton about, the Will Zalatoris of the world, the Hideki, how can you look at your PGA Tour and trust Jay Monahan? You can't. There's no way you can. I have no idea if the contracts for Live will hold up. I have no idea. I'm assuming they will. That's what contracts are for. Maybe it's all in the in the writing of those, but what's going to happen from here on out? You just think that Rory and Phil are going to be buddies now? That's not how it works. Phil was just blasting Rory on social media. Phil had no idea this was going on. That's what, and it's maybe Jay Monahan's like, yeah, I don't want Greg Norman a part of this at all. And the Yasir, the individual in charge of the Public Investment Fund, was like, yeah, we can make that happen. He doesn't care about Greg Norman. The transcript between that is this: I made the call just before this, and of course, he's a partner with us, and all the stakeholders that we have with us, they had the call just now right before the interview. He didn't know Norman ain't going to be a part of this. Like, this was made by Jay Monahan, and sounds like the Public Investment Fund just got together one time and was like, yep, here we go. But golf this is the biggest seismic shift. Some people said, what's this would be the equivalent of like the college football, the SEC and the Big Ten merging? No, not even close. Because they were still kind of partners. This was $200 million, $300 million out of pockets and trust and loyalty. This is incredible. This truly is something that I have no idea that this didn't get leaked. It's wild. And like, for the first time since Tiger Woods won a major, golf's the biggest topic in sports. When Tiger won the Masters. From the text line, the AFL NFL merger, I think that was kind of in the works. This would have been like the USFL and the NFL merging. There was no way that was going to happen, and now it did. Just incredible what's going on right now in the golf world. There's a meeting up in Canada at the RBC Open, and it's supposed to be at 3:00. And apparently the PGA Tour players are just irate. If you're Rory, I don't know how. I mean, you spent your entire last year just defending Jay Monahan in the tour, and this is what happens. Oh, man. Bridges burned, baby. That's all I know. We got a lot to get to. We're going to talk about Derrick. We'll get a little update. We'll talk Royals, talk Chiefs, all that coming up here on this edition of Mic'd Up.
WIPW Topeka FM 104.9.
We look forward to the challenge. We look forward to, to that challenge.
Mr. Official, let me ask you something. How can 6 of you miss a play like that?
His name is Matt.
Are you ready?
My name is Matt.
Let's go.
Heading to Kansas City on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone line is our Chiefs insider. He is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, my friend, how are things going in Kansas City?
Not too bad, Jake. How about yourself?
Doing well. Just shocked at the fact that two arch enemies decided to team up when it comes to the sports world, at least on the golf side. But outside of that, I'm interested to get a little OTA knowledge from you on what occurred Thursday when you were able to watch OTAs.
Yeah, I wish I had something as exciting as golf mergers to talk about from OTAs, but there's no heated rivals out there right now, so it's all pretty quiet. I mean, another regular day for the most part. I mean, that was, I think, the first really hot day of OTAs was the one we were out there for. I know Steve Spector kind of mentioned that was their first day to really probably work up a true big sweat. But still business as usual. I mean, that's kind of my theme from this whole thing is, hey, there's still a lot of, pieces that are getting worked in. And I think maybe it's just my perception. I feel like there's a little bit of a different tone with the OTAs this year because, normally, I mean, veterans do take some time off and everything, but there have been some kind of, veteran rest days and guys, stepping away. And it seems to be there actually, for a reason too, because you're seeing a lot of young guys get a lot of work. I mean, last Thursday when we were there was a heavy tight end day. And you think about, okay, Travis Kelce and Blake Bell weren't there. Well, there's guys who probably need the least amount of work. There's other guys who need a lot of snaps and a lot of looks and, and that was probably a good thing. So you hear about some guys not being there. I don't think that anything right now is that big of a deal. And in some ways, I think it's probably a good thing.
Alrighty. The coordinator spoke on Thursday of last week, Nagy, Spags, and Dave Tobe. Let's first go with, to me, the most interesting thing. Anything that Dave Tobe said to the media when this is the first time we've heard from Dave Tobe since the rules changes to the kickoff. Did he say anything that piqued your interest? Kind of like when Andy Reid said, what do we, I mean, Andy Reid went pretty hard there at the end of his press conference after those rules. Did Dave Tobe, in your mind, do the same?
I felt like he did, and and this is something that Dave Tobe didn't say, but I have heard from people around, Andy Reid. It was just that, they're like, they don't know if people really appreciate how big of a deal that it was for Andy Reid to say what he said. They're like, he doesn't usually do things like that. He doesn't usually go that far when criticizing the NFL or some of the rules changes. And so even though it was a short statement and brief and to the point, they felt like it said volumes. And Dave Tobe, I think, echoed a lot of what not just special teams coaches, but other coaches and players around the NFL feel. I mean, they're just not a big fan of it. And really a big part of it is that I think one is that they felt like that they weren't consulted, which that came clear through big time in Dave Tobe's comments. Maybe they would have bought in more had the NFL engaged in more in the process and explained their thinking a bit more. But they're also concerned about the slippery slope that, you get rid of kickoff coverage, that's what this could eventually lead to. You just give the team the ball to 25. There's no kickoff. eventually, you're going to do the same kind of things on punt because punt teams are also a very big injury area and penalty area. So they're just concerned about that. And to Dave Tope's point, they're also all concerned about the strategic elements. There's going to be some unintended consequences about how this is maybe going to affect the end of games, or especially in games in which teams are way ahead or way behind. And I'm kind of curious about it too. I mean, we'll see how it all plays out, but I don't think Dave Tope said anything that Andy Reid would disagree with. And I think that a lot of people around the league are probably saying, go Dave Tope.
Alrighty, let's get now to Steve Spagnuolo. Does Spags say anything of note?
I mean, I think the big headline obviously was talking about just how comfortable all those young guys are, and you can see it. I mean, even though we, as far as the practices have been open, haven't been able to see L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie out there. McDuffie's been on the sideline, so you can see how engaged he is, and the all important off-season mental reps that we love to talk about. You see Trent, getting in there, but the big thing is, you see Josh Williams, and you're seeing Jalen Watson and Najee Johnson and Nick Jones. I mean, all these young guys getting in there, making plays and looking good. And the fact that he's talking about that Fab Five group from last year being light years ahead of where they were, and obviously include Brian Cook in that conversation too, whom I think is a huge piece of that. That's a reason why I think you should be bullish on this defense. That there's reason for them to get better this year. I still think a big part of this defense's success is going to rest on those young guys and how they respond when NFL teams have film on them and their weaknesses, and they can try to attack them, exploit them a little bit differently, and how they're going to respond to that. But so far, I think you're hearing and seeing exactly what you want to see from that young group.
We're talking with Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone lines. Alrighty, what about Matt Nagy? Some interesting comments to me about the wide receiver group.
Yeah, I think Matt did a really good job, I think, of giving anybody and everybody some ammunition that if they want to make a case for the receiver group, they can. I mean, he was complimentary of everybody, and I've talked to people now who, after hearing Matt Nagy's comments, are like, well, Kadarius Toney's the number one receiver. Well, you know what? It might be Justin Russ. I mean, I think he likes everybody at this point. So. I think some of that is absolutely genuine and real. I mean, they do like the depth of this group. I think they feel pretty comfortable that they've got a group of 8 or 9 receivers that they really like, that they think can play in the NFL and make plays. Question is, do they have a true number one receiver? I don't know that they. I think that you could certainly take from what you heard from that, and also from the new wide receivers coach Connor Embry. I don't think they feel that way. I think they feel like they've got a really good complementary group that, it can be a different guy every week. And that's what we'll probably start hearing eventually from these guys, which we've heard in the past when Tyreek has been out, that, hey, it's going to be by committee. But I think it really is going to be that way this year. I don't know that there's a 1,000-yard receiver on this team. Maybe there is. One of these guys jumps out. But I think they also certainly feel like, you know what, there's 5 or 6 guys that they feel like could give them 400 yards, and maybe that's a longer list.
It almost feels like, a baseball analogy is they've got 5 number 3s, but don't even have a number 2 or a number 1. Maybe if you, and I don't even put Tony as a number 1 because he hasn't done it. If you want to talk about, bona fides, guys, like Mike Evans is going to get 1,000 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns every year. That's what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get from, to me, any of these wide receivers. Maybe MVS, he's going to get you 700 yards and 3 touchdowns. So is it one of the analogies of, hey, you know what, our baseball team, we can win because we've got 5 number 3s in our starting rotation, a whole bunch of, Edinson Volquez's, a whole bunch of guys who are not a Justin Verlander or a Clayton Kershaw, but they're also not, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here, but, they're not like the Jeremy Guthries or the Luke Hochavers of the world. It seems like that's kind of the hope for this wide receiver unit.
Yeah, I actually really love that comparison, and I will, at the risk of straining the metaphor, go even further and say, you know what, that might work because if you think about your tight ends as your bullpen, Well, you got HDH over there. I mean, you basically have the best bullpen in football with Travis Kelce. So, I think you can survive with that. I mean, you can do that, with having maybe 5 number 3s and not having that standout one. I could make a case maybe that Marquez is establishing himself as a number 2, but it's quibbles. Honestly, I mean, if you look at the resumes of all these receivers, and I've been going over it, and I was like, you know what? I think last year, Richie James, the year he had with New York, and Daniel freaking Jones might be the best year of any receiver on this team right now. So, I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, this is not, I think, going to be a team that's got any one standout receiver unless one of these guys really breaks out. But how many guys break out in, year 3, year 4, and year 5? I mean, at some point they are baked in. Now that's maybe Kadarius Toney, much less true. That's a guy that you could certainly see there's much, higher ceiling, but how high and how fast can he go? How high can, Sky Moore go in year 2? Justin Ross, I mean, what's his ceiling? I mean, that's the only question, is that you've got some real wide outcomes from some of these guys.
Alrighty. Speaking of wideouts, DeAndre Hopkins. What do we know about that? We know the Chiefs wanted him. They did their due diligence. He hasn't signed anywhere yet. There was a report from Jeremy Fowler that a Chiefs could have Chris Jones signing an extension. Is that kind of one leads to the other? Once you get an extension with Chris Jones, then you free up money potentially. Or all of this talk is coming from DeAndre Hopkins' side of things.
Yeah, it's a good question, but I do get the sense that the Chiefs are still interested. Yes, I think the Chris Jones extension is absolutely the prerequisite, but I don't think that one necessarily guarantees the other. I mean, it still needs to be a deal that makes sense for the Chiefs. And I just don't know how high that they're willing to go. Now, part of it is that no team is willing and able to go super high right now because nobody has any cap space left, especially when you're talking about, Super Bowl contending teams. And if that's what and where DeAndre Hopkins wants to go, I mean, there's pretty limited options about where he can. I guess Buffalo is maybe, tried to rejigger a little bit. Maybe they're in the ballpark. I know the Eagles have a little bit of money. Maybe they're interested. The Chiefs certainly seem the party, but right now, I mean, if their cap situation, it's a no-go. I mean, especially if you're DeAndre and you want a little bit of money, you gotta wait. And the longer this goes on, I mean, I will say, I think that the longer it goes on, the more likely again that probably he does come to Kansas City, or at least that's among his first choices, because waiting is the only reason to wait for Kansas City, to see if they can clear some cap space.
Let's go to the Chris Jones situation. The last extension happened in mid-July. They don't like to give it to 30-year-olds unless your name is Travis Kelce, but they get Travis Kelce for absolute peanuts for what he's worth. That might be the biggest steal. It's not Patrick Mahomes and his contract. No, it's the fact that they only have to pay Travis Kelce $14 million instead of $28 million, which he's probably worth. That might be something that needs to be talked about further on down the line, but that's for another topic and another discussion. Chris Jones, do they sign him? This is one where with what they did with Tyreek Hill, it almost feels like, gosh, they can go any direction here.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like if the Chiefs got past the draft, especially, that was kind of the big line for me. If the Chiefs got past the draft with Chris Jones, and even if a deal wasn't done yet, the chances of a deal not getting done were pretty slim, because I feel like that if they felt like that there was just no way to get a deal done, there's no reason not to have moved Chris Jones. There was no reason not to see if there was a market out there. Not only did they not move him, but haven't heard any blips around the league that was even on the board, that they were making some calls or even letting people know that he might be interested in this deal. So that tells me, I mean, the Chiefs seem to want him. Now, whether that's just for the one coming year left or more, I mean, I definitely get the sense that the Chiefs want Chris for the long term. It's still just working out a deal that makes sense. And like you said, I mean, if they could work out a deal with Chris Jones that's comparable to the Travis Kelce, where they're able to keep him, but it's not a record-setting deal for his 30s, they'd love that. I mean, because you've seen the cautionary tale. I mean, Aaron Donald was a great example last year. You give up an aging player a lot of money, and Aaron Donald's not even that old yet, but the injury risk happens, and the Chiefs don't want to get in a spot where they've got $20 million a year tied up in a player plus that can't be there every Sunday, and that's the concern. So they want a deal that makes sense for them, but I still think more likely than not it gets done. Certainly from the DeAndre Hopkins standpoint, for the Chiefs, sooner than later is better. But July 15th is still my kind of over-under date. I think I think that's probably about where it gets done, but it wouldn't surprise me, especially if the Chiefs want D-Hop, that it gets done earlier.
Is it an extension or a brand new contract? Because to me, if you want to sign DeAndre Hopkins, you have to do a brand new contract. You have to lower this current cap hit because you have no cap space. If you're not going to sign DeAndre Hopkins, to me, then you just make it an extension and you put the $28 million right now, which is already taken care of. It's already under the cap. They've already accounted for it. And then next year you drop the cap hit to the $8 million or whatever. And then you push, the next couple of years to the 24, 25, 26, or however much you got to do it. So to me, it kind of depends on what they do for this year. Also impacts next year with Chris Jones and how you want to manipulate his cap.
Yeah, it really, a big part of it's going to come down to how much the Chiefs can want to whittle off of that number for this year. They'll have to do something. I mean, and there's even some other players too. I mean, if they had to, but remember right now, I mean, they've got $1.2 billion under cap space, and that's only for the top 51 contracts. So, you still got 52 and 53 players to account for, a practice squad, injured reserve, any other moves you want to make during the season. And we know, hey, Brett Veach likes to go into a season with at least $5 million free. So they've got to do something. Now, do you want to start moving Joe Tooney's money around so that, for another older player in his 30s?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a lot of emphasis there. You start running out of contracts to rework. And Chris Jones is the easiest. So with that extension, I would expect the cap number to come down this year. That doesn't mean they're going to push it all into the future, but would certainly expect to see his base salary change this year. They could give him a roster bonus and do some different things to just get him more money earlier and make it, an attractive deal for Chris. But they have to do something. I mean, even without considering the DeAndre Hopkins option,
Mm-hmm.
they have to do something. And if it's not Chris, then it's going to have to be somebody else.
We're talking with Matt Derrick here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone line. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. They went to the White House yesterday. Travis Kelce tried to get on the mic, but apparently Patrick Mahomes with a great job of intercepting that. Do you think that was staged?
I've had that question asked a lot in the last, day. And
yeah.
I'm sure it probably was. They probably talked about it and everything. And I've had somebody else say it had to be staged because, Secret Service wouldn't let them move that quickly if they didn't know it was going to happen. I don't know. But it probably was staged, but I don't care. It was still funny. It was still those two guys being a crack up. So I thought it was absolutely on brand and perfect for those two guys.
Alrighty, my last two for the road. Did you happen to watch the big slick softball game at the K last past Friday?
I haven't watched it, but I have seen the highlights. So okay. I have some questions.
So now you know what I'm going with.
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes fielded a ball backwards and threw it behind his back to first base. It's honestly incredible it was that accurate. I'm not surprised.
Amazing it was that accurate. That's my question.
Yeah. It's not impressive that he threw it like that because that's what kind of athletes who are 27 years old who have laser rocket arms do. He put it right on the money. Is a behind the back pass coming?
I know he badly wants to do it. I don't think there's any doubt because you see him throw back behind the back pass at almost every single practice in some form or another. I mean, not necessarily during a play, but during warm-ups or something like that. He does it all the time. I think he wants to do it badly. I also think that, if I'm a guy on another NFL team and Patrick Mahomes whipped out the behind the back pass on me, I tell you what, that game's going to get chippy after that. So I don't know. I almost think we probably need to ask Andy Reid what he would do if Patrick ever threw a behind the back pass during the game, because I think that may be the only restraining holdup.
Alrighty, and lastly, you will know more about this than I would. But Norma Hunt passed away. The wife and kind of the matriarch of the Chiefs kingdom, if you will, It was Lamar Hunt's wife, Clark Hunt's mother. How important, influential was Norma Hunt when it comes to, is this kind of like a Muriel Kaufman type of situation with Ewing Kaufman and the Royals, or maybe not as important? How would you kind of describe the Norma Hunt passing?
I I think it's significant. I mean, there's no doubt, especially in her later years. I think that probably, just being the maybe the guiding principle or guiding compass of the family and the organization. I mean, she wasn't involved day to day or anything. That wasn't what her role was, but she was an inspiration. I mean, there was no doubt about it. I mean, and she had a magnetism about her that really brought people to her. I can say that, the handful of times that I got to see her, I was just always amazed that, this is a woman that was 84, 85 years old, because she seemed like a woman half that age. I mean, she had a lot of energy and a lot of spirit, and obviously loved that team. And and I think that she's probably never gotten the appreciation and respect that she deserved for things that she did do behind the scenes, because she wasn't the public figure. She wasn't the person that, was out front like Lamar was. But there's no doubt Lamar would not have been able to do half the crazy things that he did without her making it possible behind the scenes and helping him and supporting him. And we even know there's some ways. I mean, Kansas City's, as much as I think Sporting KC deserves a lot of credit for Kansas City's sporting culture now, a huge part of it belongs to Lamar Hunt. And it probably wouldn't have happened if she didn't instill, an interest in soccer in the family and the kids and everything. So I think that her legacy goes a far beyond just, anything that she's done with the football team. I mean, I think it has more to do with just the personality and the culture that she's brought to that organization and the whole company.
Matt, as always, we appreciate the time, my friend. Enjoy the final Thursday of OTAs coming up this Thursday, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds like a plan, Jake. Take care, my friend.
That is Matt Derrick, ChiefsDigest.com. Coming up, we'll get to some Royals baseball here on Mic'd Up. Hour number 2, mic'd up with Jay Lund alongside Kyle Manthe today, filling in for Fulton Caster. Thank you for stopping by on this Tuesday. We do have Royals baseball coming up tonight. We're going to get into some Royals baseball talk here in just a little bit. Brandon Dzwierzynski will stop by. And our list today, how can you not have the list involve backstabbing? Kind of a traitor. You know? Maybe in your list could be maybe one of the most famous people who just stood up for and they burned you. Benedict Arnold, right? We're gonna go with the people who you trusted and it didn't work out. The backstabbers, the hypocrites, if you will. There's no other way to put it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Live Golf and the PGA Tour have merged into one entity. We don't know the name, but it's going to suck. Has there ever been something like this that you changed the name and ended up being like the coolest name? Right? They're going to hire a PR firm, and the PR firm is going to get paid like $1 quadrillion, and then they're going to come up with something like the Global Golf Gala or something like that, or the Global Golf Association, and it's going to be just lame. Like that's what we know that's going to happen. But the PGA Tour and Live Golf have merged. That's right, and Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, didn't tell a single soul on the PGA Tour side. Nobody knew. All the players had no idea. And now there are reports coming out that the players, and rightfully so, feel betrayed and manipulated. From Todd Lewis and the Golf Channel. Spoke with several PGA Tour players who were part of a meeting in Delaware that ultimately reshaped the tour schedule, designated events and all of that. Most of those players were offered Live Golf money, but turned it down to be loyal to the tour. Those players told me they feel betrayed and manipulated. So congratulations, Jay Monahan. Everybody hates you. So we are going to go with, and now it can be, movies. If you want to go, I talked with Bradley J. He went with Jesse James, the guy who shot Jesse James in the back. If you want to go way back when, I don't know, Kyle, how big of a historian you are, but good old Caesar, he got stabbed in the back. That's the literal definition of it. So we'll see where you're going to go. I have no idea. But that's the monster news right now in the sports world, is that one group who had nothing good to say about the other, not a single one. I mean, it was like it's like the Sharks and the Jets, and then they just merged into one. Be like Missouri and Kansas coming together and being friends. It's not how it works. So huge news in the golf world. But we can talk a little baseball. The Royals are in action today. Let us know your thoughts on our text line. 785-272-9429. The Royals lost yesterday. They were up 4-0. Nick Prado hit an upper tanker. Was looking good. I'm like, man, look at the Royals. They're up 4-0 after 3 innings. And Carlos Hernandez. Hey, Carlos Hernandez bouncing back after his rough outing on Friday. Cost the Royals the win on Friday. He was the opener, went 2 innings. Struck out 3, only threw 23 pitches. 23 pitches, 2 innings. That's not bad. And then you handed the ball to Mike Myers. And you're like, Mike, you've been pretty good. Mike, let's do this. And then he proceeded to throw batting practice to the Marlins for a little bit. This was really the first bad outing for Mike Myers. Previous to that, he had 3 terrific outings. In fact, those are the 3 outings that Mike Myers had. They won. Beat San Diego, beat Detroit, beat St. Louis. But he gave up 6 earned runs in 3 innings, and the Royals went from good feelings to real bad feelings. It was funny. I was watching the game last night, and the Royals are up 4-0, and then went outside and played with my kids, and we're outside, and all of a sudden I come back inside and the score is 7-4. I'm like, what happened? Well, Mike Myers happened. But that's okay. You need to find out if Mike Myers is the guy. Is Mike Myers somebody that you can do this opener situation with? Or he is just a spot filler. That was great to see Carlos Hernandez do the opener role. That is terrific. If that is what is best for Carlos Hernandez going forward, and you can find another starter who fits that role well, can come in, I don't care how you get the 27 outs. If you want the starter to start it and pitch into the 6th, and then you bring in Hernandez for the 7th and the 8th, fine. If Hernandez doesn't do well in the 7th or the 8th, then we got to figure out another way. But maybe this could work for Carlos Hernandez. Figure out if Mike Myers is the guy who's going to make this work. That was nice to see that Hernandez did pitch well. It really, really was. And Mike Myers, he is what he is. He's a guy that maybe you'll give a crack to. Maybe he can be your long relief guy. Not a huge deal. But I wonder this. And Kyle, maybe you disagree with me on this. But I think we can kind of close the book on Josh Staumont. And it might just be one outing, and it's not a huge deal. But Josh Staumont is the perfect example of relievers have a shelf life. Some can go 5-6 years. Only one can go longer, and his name's Mariano Rivera. Wade Davis eventually hit the threshold. He had a longer good stretch than most. Andrew Miller, I remember Andrew Miller for Cleveland. God, he was so good in that 3-inning role when they went to the World Series. He was so good. Is he even in baseball anymore? But last night, Josh Staumont, and for the better part of this year, has been bad. His velocity is down. He's never really had control. His control has gotten worse. He's still striking out guys. But in 2020, 2021, Josh Staumont was really good. I remember the broadcast, if many do as well, when the Royals took on the Cubs, and the Cubs broadcasters were just in awe of what Josh Staumont was able to do. Who is this kid? I remember one of the guys saying. And then last year, he was bad. I mean, real bad. And this year, he has been bad. Josh Staumont, thus far, in his last 5 outings, has given up runs in 3 of the last 5. I believe friend of the program, David Lesky, pointed out Josh Staumont's fastball is at 94 miles an hour. Now, maybe he's hurt. We don't know. But if your fastball is at 94 miles an hour and you're not somebody like Zach Greinke, you're going to get hit. Josh Staumont's ability to get outs is all predicated on being able to throw 99 to 100. This is a guy who had electric stuff and just doesn't have it right now. And that's the bummer part, because, again, you could have traded Josh Staumont in 2021 and gotten something pretty decent in return. But instead, you wasted 21, 22, he wasn't any good, and now 23, it's a struggle again. He might be dinged up. Maybe it's just part of it. But now you're starting to see, is this the wear and tear from a reliever? You can't throw out Josh Staumont anymore in a high leverage situation. He's walking 6 guys. He just walks everybody. So Mike Myers is more so a, hey, one bad start out of his last 5 appearances. Give him the rest of the year. We don't have anybody else coming up. Keep Carlos Hernandez in the opener. That seems to be a role that he is decent with. But boy, Staumont just is not the same type of pitcher this year and for sure last year. And that's one thing about the Royals, why I want them to trade Scott Barlow and why I think they messed up not trading Scott Barlow this offseason. If you knew you weren't going to be competitive, and it sure sounds like the Royals didn't think they were going to be competitive, then why do you have a closer or a knockdown, get me 4 outs at the 8th and 9th guy? You don't need them. There's no point in having a dominant bullpen guy to win 50 games. What's more valuable is giving that dominant bullpen guy away and bringing in potential bullpen guys even, or a third baseman or a starting pitcher who's more than a lottery ticket, because you wouldn't just say, yeah, we'll take an A-ball guy for Scott Barlow. But maybe you'd take a Drew Waters type and say, hey, we'll trade you Scott Barlow, who's super cheap for the next 3 years, for a AAA guy who might produce at the big league level. It's not really a lottery ticket. It's more of a, a high dollar scratch off where most of the time, you at least get like $2 or $3, something like that. The Royals have 2 guys right now who are relievers right now who could bolster any bullpen in Aroldis Chapman and Scott Barlow. You should have traded Scott Barlow before this year because you could have gotten more. And you should have traded Josh Staumont because in 2021, after the 2021 season, you could have gotten a Drew Waters for Josh Staumont. Now you're not going to get anything. You missed another opportunity. All because you thought you were going to end up being competitive in 22. And of course, his 22 year, no one was going to want to trade for Josh Staumont. So the Royals missed a huge opportunity. They really, really did. And I don't know what's going to end up happening with Josh Staumont. It might be just he's tired. Maybe he's got dead arm. I don't know. But this is now a year and almost a half of Josh Staumont's a shell of what he once was. The offense is not bad. Boy, I'm telling you what, Nick Pratto in the leadoff spot, that is a good situation. And this goes back to what we talked about a little bit yesterday. What maybe can you get for Nick Pratto? Vinny Pasquantino got the day off yesterday. That's understandable. MJ Melendez had a nice day at the plate. That was great to see. Salvador Perez still continues to do Salvador Perez things. But Nick Pratto right now is building a case of either one, he's going to be valuable to trade, or two, he's a guy that you have super cheap for the next 5 years. Hitting almost 300, on base of almost 400. Hit his 4th home run. And you hope somebody like a Nick Pratto can hit about 15 homers in a season. He doesn't have crazy power, but he's got enough to hit upper tankers in the in Miami. So that's something that's great to see when it comes to Nick Pratto and Vinny Pasquantino. They play the same position. They play first base. Pratto can play a little bit elsewhere. Maybe you move one of those guys. Maybe you think you can keep one of those guys if you want to trade somebody else. But that's really good to see that Nick Pratto continuing to hit the baseball really, really well. But the Royals are back in action tonight. Zach Greinke on the bump. Don't really care about this game because Zach Greinke's pitching. I know that sounds really mean, but Zach's not part of the next great Royals team. We don't even know if he's going to play baseball next year. He's been really good. He was the Royals pitcher of the month in May. He's been good. But if he gets shelled, no big deal. If he pitches great, okay, let's see if a young bullpen guy can handle the pressure. What do the bats do today? I have no idea who the Marlins are pitching, or if they're any good, or the pitcher who's any good right now. It is Luzardo. And the answer is he is basically average. Strikes out a lot of guys, but he is pretty much average. That's what Luzardo is. So Royals tonight, 5:40 pregame, 5 o'clock, or 5:40 first pitch, 5 o'clock pregame down in Miami. Tomorrow's game moved up because of the NBA Finals game. That will be a 5 o'clock first pitch, 4:30 pregame coverage coming up on Wednesday. Coming up next, though, in light of Jay Monahan just saying, forget it, guys. I don't care what you did for me. I'm going to do what I think I'm going to do. And we're going to go with our list, our favorite backstabbers. Or if you want to go with the ones that you don't like the most. We'll get to that coming up next. righty, everyone loves the list. In light of Jay Monahan going completely against everything that his players were defending the PGA Tour, we're going to go with our biggest backstabbers. All right. All righty. Who do you got number 4?
My number 4, I thought this was kind of a funny one, and I wanted to get a sports one in there. And all of my list items have kind of like a family theme. Number 4, I have Doc Rivers trading his son Austin Rivers while he was the coach of the Clippers, and then also later trading his son-in-law Seth Curry, trading him. So trading two family members while he's a coach.
Okay. I went a lot of movie based instead of real life because those are the first ones that jumped out to me. I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Departed. Colin Sullivan, aka Matt Damon. Man, that dude, that no one liked that guy. Nobody did. But yeah, Sullivan off of The Departed, Matt Damon's character.
My number 3, everyone's seen The Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
Scar betraying Mufasa and Simba. Maybe you could see it coming, but that doesn't make it any less sad.
That's a phenomenal answer. What a great answer. Yeah. You could argue Scar is the worst Disney villain.
Doesn't have like many redeemable qualities like most Disney villains.
He killed his brother. Like, that's a really good pull, man. That's really good. I went with Henry Hill. I don't know if you know who Henry Hill is. Have you ever seen the movie Goodfellas?
I have not.
Okay. Ray Liotta's character rolls on his buddies at the end. Spoiler alert. Yeah, Henry Hill from Goodfellas. I love Goodfellas. That was a great movie. But yeah, you can't do that.
Number 2 from Game of Thrones, maybe my favorite TV show ever. I don't know. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't mind the ending. I really didn't. Who are you going with? Oh, I know. Theon Greyjoy. No?
It's the Red Wedding.
Oh man, yeah.
Season 3, I believe.
Yep. Oh gosh, who was the one who backstabbed him? It was
House Frey betraying House Stark.
Frey. Yes.
There's a reason why it's called the Red Wedding.
Oh man, good call there. I went with Frito Corleone off The Godfather Part 2. He went against the family, man. How can you do that?
My number 1, you mentioned it, Brutus and Caesar. When you lose a whole country, it's kind of hard to top that. And you kill him, can't beat that.
Alrighty, my number 1. Are you a Ted Lasso guy? Have you watched Ted Lasso? Okay. My wife and I are watching Ted Lasso right now, and we just finished season 2. All right, we just finished season 2. So no spoilers. But man, I hate Nate right now. Nate is awful. The fact that what he said to Ted to his face after backstabbing him, I am so mad at Nate. Nate is the worst. The absolute worst right now. I got season 3 coming up, and but you got it. Nate, I'm so mad at Nate right now. Oh, what a backstabber. Coming up, we're going to talk with Brendan Dzwierzynski. Welcome back into Mic'd Up. Jake LeBon alongside Kyle Manthe. We're going to talk some Chiefs wide receivers. We got odds makers coming up in the 2 o'clock. We'll talk a little bit more about the Royals in action tonight or late afternoon, depending upon if you view 5 o'clock as late afternoon. But we'll get into all that coming up here on Mic'd Up. But right now, we are joined by Brendan Dzwierzynski here in studio, host of 580 Sports Talk, which is coming up in a little less than an hour and a half. All right, Brendan, we've got some great texts coming in. Stan Kroenke, another answer from Vance, the Baltimore Colts owner, when they left. That's a good one.
Robert Irsay, yeah.
No, not that one. He didn't when they left the Baltimore.
Yeah, Robert Irsay, Jim's dad.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that was him.
Yeah, Robert Irsay.
Interesting. Left Baltimore to go up to Indianapolis. Kyle had a great one. Scar off the Lion King.
That is a good one.
Fantastic one. I've seen a couple other Lando Calrissian. Did I say that right? Calrissian. Either way.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting one though, because he ends up back on the right side.
Yeah.
Lando was pretty much,
Do you like my Nate off Ted Lasso right now, Kyle? Man, I hate Nate right now.
It's definitely a betrayal. I wouldn't have it at number one.
Oh
but
no,
it's a betrayal.
He was the laundry guy, and Ted brought him in to be an assistant coach, and that's how. Oh, I'm so mad right now. Oh, my wife is furious. Oh my gosh. Oh, so mad at Nate off of Ted Lasso. We're starting season 3. I'm excited. So that's what we're doing. Our list today was honestly the backstabbers, because what Jay Monahan has done, there's no other way to put this but as you're a backstabber.
Okay.
You completely you sided with the enemy and told everyone, don't take hundreds of millions of dollars. Their money is no good, and now all of a sudden you do.
Okay.
So you got, and it can be on any walk of life.
Yeah, so I've got 3 for you.
Okay.
3 that came to mind immediately.
Brett Favre.
Okay. I'll put him as my 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In retrospect, I'm glad he did not end his career with the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
Okay. The other 3 in no particular order. Benedict Arnold.
Yeah. We brought up Benedict Arnold.
Yep.
He's probably the most famous trader, right?
I would argue that point with my second answer. Judas.
Oh, yeah, okay. We're going like that's
biblical, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to the Jesus' agony in the garden.
That might be like he might be the original.
Yeah, so we're going with Judas.
Okay, that's a good one.
And then number 1, this one is in particular order. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, turning on Marty Jannetty in the barbershop. Threw him through the glass window, breaking up the Rockers forever and launching the singles career of the Heartbreak Kid.
I wouldn't have gone that with number 1. What about Hollywood Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, Hogan betraying WCW, joining the NWO, Bash at the Beach. That's up there. Batista turning on Triple H, breaking up Evolution in 2005.
The Rock joining the corporation.
Yeah, I'd put that on there. There's a lot of good ones from wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's like,
kind of the whole bit.
Yeah, that's the whole deal. But
But yeah,
Stan Kroenke's a good one.
Yeah, Stan Kroenke's
the owner of the Rams.
That is a good one.
Left St. Louis. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. There really, really is. So many of them. We hit number 1, Caesar, and we're talking about countries.
We're talking about Brutus then.
Yeah. Caesar is the one who got stabbed.
Yeah.
Literally stabbed in the back.
Yeah, that's true.
Tough world there.
Tough break.
But speaking of that, like
Cain and Abel.
Another good one. But
man, they're getting wild in the Bible, man.
We have not seen something like this in sports on this capacity.
No, this is crazy. The other thing too, and this is like a long-term play. If you think this is just a golf thing, it's not. Do you remember the big ownership news that happened in the NBA within the last year? The big new rule about ownership of NBA franchises?
No.
For the first time as of November last year, maybe, sovereign entities can now purchase stakes of NBA teams. So things like the Public Investment Fund, could now theoretically own a share of an NBA team. That was never allowed in American sports until this past year.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's the public investment fund, but that's what's happening in the Premier League. Like, if you're wondering why,
I think they have holdings.
Well, I don't know if it's individuals or if it's, but for those of you who don't know about the English soccer world,
You think American sports are corrupt?
Manchester City was a nobody. Nobody cared about the organization unless you were, a loyal, supporter. And then they got bought by Saudi oil money.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought every good player. And now they never lose. Like, Liverpool won the Premier League 1 year and they almost lost it. But I think Man City's won it 6 of the last 7 years. And they're owned by the Saudi oil money.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I want to say, was it 2 years ago? A lovely football team that has never had any success, ever, in Newcastle. All of a sudden...
Yes, that is who is owned 80% by the public investment fund.
Is Newcastle.
Yes.
So Newcastle was even more of a nobody than Man City.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking... Newcastle was like Wolverhampton or Brighton or like West Ham was even more known than Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
And now 2 years ago,
Newcastle more known for the beer.
They were bought by the public investment fund, and now guess what?
They are much more competitive.
They're like I think they finished third.
By the way, the Man City, they are owned by the Abu Dhabi United Group. So different Middle Eastern country.
Yeah.
The United Arab Emirates, but same principle.
And I don't know if they're not good people. I have no idea. I'm not going to say if they are or they aren't. I just know that he's got more money than he knows what to do with. And so he's like, I'm going to go just give you $2 billion and go spend money.
Yeah.
So, but this is something that I can't believe. Like, because it was so staunch, the PGA Tour, and they were, you need to defend us, and then all of a sudden today, nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about, the PGA Tour is supposed to be a player-run league. Not a single player do. Like, this is, golf is now going to be forever changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it just comes down to whether or not the number had to be so astronomical for Jay Monahan to turn heel.
Well, to do it so abruptly
with no communication whatsoever.
We have talked a lot in the last 3 years now about the partnership between college sports conferences and TV networks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how ESPN broke up the original Big East, and they had a hand in, obviously, Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, and this partnership between the TV networks and Fox and Disney and the conferences, right? Well, this move was made, and I don't know if you touched on this earlier, but was made without CBS I don't know about CBS specifically, but without the media partners in general knowing about it.
A TV executive, according to several people, we have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Like,
and
that's not okay. Like, you've got to at least give them a clue.
And it's almost like two people came together to determine everything, and they're like, oh, well, we'll workshop it as we go. This is monster. Like, this is the first time that golf is the number one headline in the sports world since Tiger Woods crashed his car.
Yes.
And then since Tiger Woods won the Masters.
Yeah.
Like, and what do those two things have in common? Tiger Woods. Like, golf.
Yeah, that's an interesting note about this, is that they got what they wanted. They wanted Tiger.
Like that.
And now they've got him and Rory and everyone else.
And I just, this is wild to me.
By the way, as I have the list open here of owners of English football clubs. So these two teams are listed alphabetically right next to each other. Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
Nottingham, excuse me. They're owned by a Greek guy who owns a maritime trading company.
Okay.
They are worth the ownership group's total net worth is 620 million American dollars.
That's not that much.
No, it honestly for the Premier League, that's surprisingly little.
Well, they're not normally a Premier League team.
They're an up and down team.
Yeah.
The team listed alphabetically, one above them, Newcastle United, which is owned 80% by the Public Investment Fund, $620 billion.
$620
That's
billion.
3 more zeros at the end of that number between those two teams.
And they're in the same league.
They're the same league.
Same league.
By the way, the next, and this just tells you how much crazy money they have and why it must have been to us, like we think of athlete contracts in the U.S. We're like, man, that's an unbelievable amount of money.
Yeah.
This is beyond that.
It's got to be in the billions.
Oh, I think it's got to be in the hundreds of billions. The next most valuable ownership group in the English Premier League, Manchester City, owned by the Abu Dhabi United Group.
Probably like a couple $100 billion.
Not even. 22.
Wow.
22 billion. That is a difference of $598 billion in ownership money.
Yeah.
How is there that much money on earth? I think that's such a big number that I don't think you can grasp it.
That's why because the
new ownership group for the Commanders bought them for $6 billion, and that's an NFL record. And that's the biggest single national league on earth. For six.
I don't know how Jay Monahan can keep his job.
Well, knowing who his new bosses are, they'll probably be happy to keep him.
I know.
No, that's incredible.
What was it? The age-old question. Whoever's got the most money is in charge.
Yeah. And that's the PIF.
I cannot believe that this actually happened. Not just and I'm not even talking about the moral side of things or anything like that. I'm talking just simply one entity was so staunch against another, and now they're joining them.
I would love to know how bad the things were that the PGA Tour is trying to keep hidden in court.
That's what I think.
It has to.
I had so many things like the lawsuits are now gone, and that's the one thing where maybe people thought the PGA Tour was doing some things that you shouldn't be able to do, and they didn't want it to see the light of day, and the live people knew that, and so they were going to fight it in court until they finally got it to the light of day. I have no idea, but to turn that thing around that quickly, that ship around sailing, that's remarkable. It really, really is.
By the way, so the Wikipedia list for the owners of Premier League teams, they have the value of the ownership group, like how much their combined worth is. The NFL franchise owners page is just what was paid to buy the team. So like you look at the teams that were purchased recently, like Carolina Panthers, $2.27 billion because they were just bought a couple years ago.
Yep.
The Chicago Bears have been owned by the same family since 1920.
Yeah. What do they pay? Like $800,000?
$100.
$100.
The original franchise fee in 1920 was $100.
So it says $100. Bears.
Oh, more. That third biggest market, new stadium coming, huge fan base.
$1 billion more than what the Commanders sold for.
Yes, easily. The Giants, the New York Football Giants, were purchased for $500 in 1932. Isn't that unbelievable?
It's incredible. It really. Well, that's the. David Glass bought the Royals for $100 million. He sold them for $1 billion.
It's the best investment in the world. Own a professional sports team
if you got the money. If you really, really do. If you were in charge of the Royals and you had to trade somebody, because I've been talking about this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The Royals have to do a bold move. If you are a team that doesn't spend money at all, you have to make a bold decision.
Right.
The Royals made a bold decision in 2013 when they traded their best minor league player at the time, Will Myers, who was the minor league player of the year. This guy was supposed to be can't miss. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They traded him for 2 years for James Shields. That was the bold move, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It did. Changed the culture, gave you a winner, all of that, right?
Right.
And you also got Wade Davis. Now, that was kind of more of the holy cow lottery ticket he turned into, the cyborg. but that was your bold move. You had to give up something. They don't have anybody in the minors right now, because if they had anybody in the minors right now, they'd be up with the ball club.
Right.
So you got to trade a big league guy. You have no pitching. The hope is that Singer and Lynch can be the guy. Then you go buy another guy. You say John Sherman, because there is a blueprint to me. Singer and Lynch become good, and Singer's starting to pitch better. Lynch, you hope, can develop this year. So you got Singer and Lynch next year. You go out and you buy a guy. You say, John Sherman, go spend $90 million. You got to go buy a pitcher. So now you got three pitchers. Then you got you still need one more. Ain't nobody in the coffers coming up.
Nope.
Okay, unless it's Austin Cox or Myers or the I'm forgetting his name from AAA. So you got to trade somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Can you trade anybody to get you a big league pitcher? And there are four guys. That's it. Who are you trading? Which one of the four? It's either Bobby Witt Jr.,
No.
Nick Parado,
No.
Vinny Pasquantino, MJ Melendez, which you're not going to get a big league pitcher for at this point in time, or Salvador Perez. Five guys. That's it.
Did you read Ken Rosenthal's newsletter today?
I did not.
We're going to talk about this to lead off, or during the opening segment of 580 Sports Talk today. I will read you in part of what Ken Rosenthal wrote about the Royals. The section, it's his newsletter, so it's smaller chunks. This Ken's Corner, Royals seeking double play. For now, the Royals are giving interested teams in Aroldis Chapman two options, according to sources briefed on their discussions. Option one, part with a better prospect package to gain control of Chapman for nearly 4 months rather than just 2 months that you would get at the deadline. So
Makes sense.
Trade ASAP.
Yeah.
Or accept Chapman as part of a package with another Royals player, enabling Kansas City to shed payroll while ensuring a better return in a trade. One club that spoke with the Royals interpreted the team's desire to attach Chapman to another player as an indication it wants to move its highest priced asset, catcher Salvador Perez. A more realistic package would include Scott Barlow. I don't want Salvi to get traded, but I think if it's going to be any of those guys, it's him. It's him, then it's Melendez, and I don't think you're touching the other. You can't touch Witt, and you can't touch Pasquantino. There's too much potential. They're too central to what you are doing now to move one of those guys.
I think everyone's on the table. I really do. I think Pasquantino's on the table, because right now, Pasquantino would give you the most in return. He is a bat that is...
I think Witt would. I know the numbers are there, but Witt is both younger and plays a more premium position.
But I think it's all on the table, because you got to do a bold move. Because
I agree with that.
If you trade Witt, then you end up with probably 3 or 4 prospects, or at least 3. I would think prospects, because super cheap for the next 5 years.
I mean, it would need to be guys that can play next season.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it needs to be, top 50 guys.
Yeah. It would be like the Juan Soto type of trade.
Yeah.
Except you wouldn't get that much in return because he's Juan Soto.
Yeah.
But Salvador Perez is the perfect example of you would, and the thing that bothers me the most that on that Ken Rosenthal topic, and I might get more into that, is the term shedding payroll. That's garbage.
No, I agree.
That's garbage.
I agree.
You're not going to get anything for Salvador Perez because he does cost so much. I mean, you're attaching Aroldis Chapman essentially to do it.
No, I agree.
And if
John Sherman also doesn't need to do it. Yeah. He can afford it.
There are certain, and I did not see that. That is really interesting, because now I got so many thoughts going in my head right now on this is a true different regime.
Right.
If the first big move that you make, JJ Piccolo, is jettison Salvador Perez.
The year you also made him your captain. Dan brought this up the other day, that Dayton Moore being moved out was not just the person, it was the era of we act with sentimentality.
Yeah.
We are yet to see if this regime will. Hopefully they don't. But I think the obvious question, again, I don't want Salvi to get shipped out because I think he's an important piece, but I would understand if they made that move. He's got 3 more years this year and 2 more, and then a club option in 2026. If you are planning on having a contending window, not just a year, like let's get lucky for a year, like the 05 White Sox. If you say we want to have a window where we can compete when Witt is at his peak, Pasquantino's at his peak, Is that going to happen within the next 2 years before that club option?
No.
Realistically, is that window going to happen with Salvador Perez under contract?
No.
If the answer is no, you have to consider it.
Yeah. Oh, you should consider it, but you got to understand the ramifications.
Agreed. No,
That
100% agree.
1,000%.
It better work. That's what it comes down to. It better work.
We got a lot more to get to coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. We're going to talk about Chiefs wide receivers, but we're going to discuss that topic there from Ken Rosenthal because I got so many things going on in my head. We got a lot more to get to. Odds makers coming up real quick. Odds that Royals lose 100 games.
52.
52%. David Lesky said 65%.
Oof.
Coming up next, we got some news, and then we'll get back to the final hour mic'd up. joining us. Jake Lamont, along with Kyle Manthe, filling in for Fulton Castner. We got a little edition of Oddsmakers coming up. Have to write that down. Brendan Dzwierzynski said 52% for Royals losing 100 games, which is now the highest amongst the 580 sports team. So I have to write that down for Fulton and his little line graph that he's going to have when it comes to the Royals losing 100 games. Thank you so much for stopping by. Final hour here of Mic'd Up. If you missed anything, you can also head to our website, 580wibw.com. Very simple, very easy. Let us know your thoughts on our text line, 785-272-9429. Outside of Topeka, 785-272-9429. The big news of the day is that the PGA Tour and the Live Golf Tour are merging. The Public Investment Fund, which is run by the Saudi government, is going to be the main investor into the PGA Tour now. So they got a whole bunch of money now, the PGA Tour does. But now you've got upset fans. You've got some upset players. Mostly a lot of upset players when it comes to this. Don't know what the future is going to be. We don't even know the name of it. It's probably going to be super lame, and the logo is going to be bad. But that's the biggest news of the day, is that the two rival tours are joining forces, and nobody saw this coming. I think the more shock of this is that it happened like ripping off a Band-Aid. Nobody saw this coming. Not a single media member. Nobody saw this coming. And golf, as I want to say it was Kyle Porter of CBS Sports says, golf has a lot of loose lips. They like to talk. That this didn't get leaked is pretty incredible. That goes to show you how many people knew about this. Not many. So the two are merging. Now, some people said, I can't believe Augusta National is now in with. Let me make this clear. The four majors, which most people care about, they have nothing to do with either tour. Okay? The PGA Championship, the golf tournament, the major, has no connection with the PGA Tour. They're completely different. Okay? The Masters, Augusta National, has nothing to do with the PGA Tour or Live. Have nothing to do with it. They are their own entity. The U.S. Open is run by the USGA. Okay? The Open Championship, right? The British Open, that's run by the R&A. Nothing to do with Live. So those four tournaments are not really going to be affected by any of this. It's the PGA Tours, it's the players, and it's the weekly tour stops. It's, the Valero Classic. It's the Phoenix Open. It's Riviera. It is the Farmers Open. It is the Quail Hollow. It's, the Honda. It's the Memorial, Muirfield Village, Jack's tournament, right? Tigers tournament. That's what it's affecting. So this came out of nowhere. I will say this, and maybe Jay Monahan looked at this and said, I'm going to be the bad guy. People are going to hate me. Maybe he's going the Roger Goodell route, right? Nobody likes Roger Goodell. Like, everybody hates the guy, right? He takes all the arrows, all the grief, everything from the fans for the owners, right? Maybe Jay Monahan is looking at it like this. I want golf to be back to what golf could be. Or I want the PGA Tour to have the best golfers. Because that was the biggest problem, is that you had some of the best golfers playing on Live and some of the best golfers playing in the PGA Tour. They're all now on one tour again. So is this actually good for the game of golf if you just take it for golf and that's what it is? Just the golf side, right? And also on the golf side, you're getting a whole bunch of money from a bunch of bad dudes, but the golf is going to be better because that's what everybody was wanting. They were wanting more exciting stuff happening on the regular tours and it not just turning into tennis, because tennis, all it is the four majors, what's going on right now, the French Open. Tennis, people only care about tennis for 4 weekends a year. Golf, for the majority of it, is trending that way. And so maybe Jay Monahan's like, look, I get it. I look like a rat. I look like a backstabber, but we're going to have so much money now because we are in bed with the public investment fund and all the good golfers are back under one roof. Maybe that's the way he's looking at it. But boy, you did it in the absolutely wrong possible way. And who says that the guys on LIV and the guys in the PGA Tour are actually going to get along? So there's the moral side of it. There's the golf side of it. There is the personal side of it. Man, there's a lot to take. There's a lot to digest when it comes to the golf world. But we're going to move to the Kansas City. We're going to go to the Royals here. And I got a lot of thoughts with what Brendan brought up in Ken Rosenthal's newsletter. And it mainly involves John Sherman. And we joke about the process, right? You know, Joel Embiid, the process, you know. But all I ask for my professional franchises to have is a plan. That's all I want. I want a plan. Okay? And at least stick to the plan. And right now, I don't know if the Royals have a plan, and really, and maybe we, the media, didn't do enough when it comes to just how seismic of a shift Dayton Moore being fired was going to be. But also now we're going to find out what kind of owner John Sherman is. And the reason I say that is right now, I don't know what the Royals are. What is their plan? What is John Sherman's plan? Reading this from Ken Rosenthal, and I'll read it here verbatim. For now, the Royals are giving teams interested in Aroldis Chapman 2 options. According to sources briefed on their discussions who were granted anonymity so they could speak candidly, as we all know that, part of a better prospect package to gain control of Chapman for nearly 4 months of the regular season rather than 2 months a team would get by acquiring him at the trade deadline. Very simple. You trade him right now, you get him for June, July, August, September, and the playoffs. You trade him in July, you get him for August, September, and the playoffs. So you get June and July. You're going to get a bigger return. Pretty simple. Or you can accept Chapman as part of a package with another Royals player, enabling Kansas City to shed payroll while ensuring a better return in a trade. One club that spoke with the Royals interpreted the team's desire to attach Chapman to another player as an indication it wanted to move its highest priced asset, Salvador Perez. But a more realistic package would be Chapman and fellow reliever Scott Barlow, a source said. The Royals should trade Scott Barlow and Aroldis Chapman yesterday. Or trade them when they're when you can get the most in return. Some people like to go to the deadline because deadlines create action. We all know that. And you end up trading those two guys at a time where other people are invested, and so the price tag goes up. Very case of You got a couple suitors going after each other. Hey, this is going to help us get a better return. You're also risking that Scott Barlow and Aroldis Chapman get hurt. You also risk that Scott Barlow and Aroldis Chapman end up pitching poorly, because no one's going to end up going after a guy who's not pitching well. Circa Danny Duffy a couple of years ago. They could have traded Danny Duffy in June when he was pitching well, then got hurt and got nothing for him. Got nothing for him. So you either trade Aroldis Chapman, but you need to trade Scott Barlow. But the interesting thing about this, coming from Ken Rosenthal, and what makes me furious right now if this is true, it says here, accept Chapman as part of a package with another Royals player. An indication it wanted to move its highest priced asset, Salvador Perez, so Kansas City could shed payroll while ensuring a better return in a trade. Here's the thing that is completely, it's garbage. If you are trading Salvador Perez just to shed payroll. If the only reason you're trading Salvador Perez is to shed payroll, then John Sherman sell the team. If you want to do it because this is the way that this Royals regime is going to do things, and you are going to stick with that plan, then fine. This is a completely new way of operating that we think under J.J. Picollo. Dayton Moore would not make trades. They went with guys who meant something even though they weren't going to win. They valued the fans' connection with the player more so than wins and losses. And there are many examples of this. In 2019, the Royals were not going to be competitive. They should have traded Whit Merrifield. They should have traded Danny Duffy when they had the chance. That's when you should have traded Salvador Perez. 2019, 2020, that's when you trade Salvador Perez. You should have traded Josh Stalmont. We just talked about that. That is we are going to be more transactional, if you will, for this Royals team. Dayton Moore was never going to do that. And it took something that was more clubhouse related to trade Whit Merrifield last year. If you are going to trade Salvador Perez just to shed payroll, then that tells me you have no plan. But if you are going to do it to shed payroll, then you're trying to get a better player, someone who's going to be on the next great Royals team. Because if the Royals are not going to be competitive in the next 2 years, then you're wasting Salvador Perez. The problem is he's owed $23 million for a guy who is aging, and you don't know all of a sudden, is he just going to completely fall off the table? We don't know. He's basically part-time catcher, part-time DH. If you're doing it as part of a series of moves because this is the new plan, this is the new identity of the Kansas City Royals, then that's tough. That's a hard way of dealing it with your fan base. According to the text line, the executive that surmised it's a payroll shedding move is absolutely full of garbage. It's just another way to dig at the Royals. He has absolutely no evidence to back up his assertion. Well, he's got a source, and that's why we are bringing this up. And he specifically names Salvador Perez. I just want the Royals to have a plan. And right now, I don't know if it's John Sherman who doesn't have the plan or if it's J.J. Picollo who doesn't have the plan. The plan is you need to have a date in which you think you can be competitive. If the Royals sat here and said in February 1st of 2023, we think we can win, then you didn't do enough in the offseason. And if the answer is, I don't think we can win, then you need to then make the evaluation of, we'll be more transactional. We're going to buy an Aroldis Chapman, hopefully turn him around so we can flip him at the deadline. We are going to trade Scott Barlow. He is not part of our future, so we are going to trade him and get something for him. You're going to listen to offers from everybody. What can you get for Salvador Perez? What can you bring back with a Nick Pratto or a Vinny Pasquantino? If we are talking about when the next Royals team is going to be good, you have to have a plan and then execute that plan. Dayton Moore seemed to be shooting from the hip, especially at the end. Dayton Moore executed the rebuild perfectly, drafting Moustakas, drafting Hosmer, building them up, trading. He did everything right up until, honestly, I had no problem with going for it in 2017. The thing that bugged me is that they traded Wade Davis. They tried to semi-rebuild, but also win at the same time. Because in 2027, if the Royals had Wade Davis in 2027 or 2026? Or 2016 or 2017? I got to make sure, because I think they traded him in 2017. They traded in the offseason before 2017. They traded Wade Davis for Jorge Soler. They should have just kept Wade Davis because the Royals needed a closer in 2017, and they didn't have one. They needed another strong bullpen guy. That's where it goes back to, if you think you're going to be competitive, have a bullpen guy. Have a lockdown guy. And Wade Davis in 2017 had a 2.30 ERA in 58 innings. You put that on the Royals in 2017, they go to the playoffs. But instead, they tried to do a whole half measure type of deal, and then they didn't make the playoffs. But if they went for it in 2017, I was okay with it. One last run with the guys that we had. Then you started the rebuild in 2018. And ever since 2018, the Royals have made so many bad decisions. That's when you didn't trade the guys you were supposed to trade, sign guys that you were supposed to sign. Not trading Witt, not trading Sal, not trading Danny Duffy, not trading, the other smaller guys that you could have gotten something for. Giving contract extensions to guys like Hunter Dozier. Making bad contracts with Ian Kennedy. I need you to have a plan. And if your plan is shedding payroll, then you're not caring about winning. You need to say, we're going to trade this guy because it gives us the best chance of winning. And it stinks, but that's what you have to portray. You have to control the message if you are the Kansas City Royals. Trading Salvador Perez now was basically like trading Whit Merrifield last year. Pennies on the dollar. This would be like, oh yeah, we're gonna buy Bitcoin back when it was super expensive, and then all of a sudden it tanked. Is it still tanked? Is Bitcoin no longer really a thing? I don't even know crypto. I never really got into that. That was above my head. Whatever. And then you sold it as it was tanking. That's not what you do. You were told always, in economics classes, if you got it, buy low and then you sell high. You don't sell it when it's going down. If anything, you buy more of it. Hey, it's cheaper. We think it's going to go back up. So to me, that is irritating if that is true what is going on. Fine, put together Aroldis Chapman, put together Salvador Perez, but you better get a dude, because if you trade Salvador Perez, you get Edward Olivares, or you get even a Drew Waters, that's a problem. Because now you've done two things. One, you've lost your best player. You've lost an iconic figure in Royals history. Salvador Perez will probably have his jersey up there at Kauffman for what he's done for the Kansas City Royals. I would rather have Salvador Perez's jersey up there than Ned Yost's. To me, what Salvador Perez has done for the Royals is similar to what Frank White has done for the Royals, okay? He wasn't George Brett. I don't know if anybody will ever be George Brett. More than likely, no. But what Salvador Perez has meant for the Royals World Series team and how long he spent with the team and what he's done with this team ever since he was a 22-year-old kid is similar to what Frank White is, and his jersey's up there. So if you are going to trade a guy who has meant so much to this franchise for shedding payroll, don't do it for that reason. Do it because, oh, well, we're not winning right now. We're not going to win next year. We're not going to win the year after that. But it also just goes to show you that the Royals completely botched this entire thing because you are not even remotely going to get what you could have gotten 3 years ago from Salvador Perez. And that's another layer of this giant 35-layer dip that we have with the Royals on just how this is not a change in name and in title, but a change potentially in philosophy. This trade deadline could shape what the Royals do in the future and can also shape in the offseason what J.J. Piccolo is going to mean for this Royals franchise and how John Sherman, let me ask you this. You're going to win 55 games. You potentially are going to trade the captain of your team, and you're going to ask for $1.5 billion in taxpayer money? I'd like how to not be an owner 101 to your fan base for 500, Alex. That ain't that difficult. You cannot miss on these type of trades if you are talking about trading Salvador Perez. You cannot do it. From Ken Rosenthal, who's as plugged in the baseball world as it comes. One club that spoke with the Royals interpreted the team's desire to attach Chapman to another player, an indication it wanted to move its highest priced asset, Salvador Perez. But a more realistic package would be Chapman and fellow reliever Scott Barlow. Do that. That should have been, that should be done tomorrow. That should be done a week from today. July 1st, that should be done. Scott Barlow and Aroldis Chapman go to the same team. Double up on those individuals. See what we can get in return on a short investment. That is no question what should be done for the Kansas City Royals. But when you start talking about a guy like Salvador Perez, you can't miss on that one. We say this a lot. There are nuances. Oh, you can't trade Salvador Perez. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But you got to do it for the right reasons. You have to portray it for the right reasons, and you better not miss. You cannot miss if you are the Royals in that situation. Coming up next, we got a little odds makers, and then we'll get to some Chiefs wide receiver news.
still just 50-50. I like those odds.
Alrighty, little odds makers here. Kyle, it's very simple. The Royals have won 18 games. They've lost 42. What are the odds that the Royals lose 100 games? We've played 60 games, by the way. Played 60 games.
Currently on pace to definitely lose 100
Oh,
games.
yeah. Not even a question. Played 60 games.
I'll join Brendan right at 52%. We'll make Fulton's chart easy. Just straight
Okay.
line, both of us at 52%. Definitely looks more likely than not at this point.
They've got 102 games left. All right. They have to win 44 games to get to 62.
So essentially 500 ball, or roughly a little below it.
A little below it.
Win about 40% of their
Yeah.
games rather than like the 30% that they're winning right now.
Yeah. They got to somehow win at a much. I'm over 50% now. In fact, I'm going to go higher. I'm at 57% that the Royals are going to lose 100 games.
Aside from their normal hot September, it just doesn't seem like there's a path to getting to 100, not 100 losses at this point and getting to 62 wins. It just doesn't look like it's going to happen.
They got to go 45-57. I believe that's right, right? 45-57? 45. That gives him 63, Yep. And then 45 plus 57 is 102. Yeah. They got to go 45-57. That ain't happening, man. Yeah, this is.
The hope should be to get to 60 wins and not be in the 50s at the end of the year.
I think the hope is not to lose 107 games and set the record for the. How about that? Yeah, John Sherman. Hey, I would like $1.5 billion of taxpayer money. How's your team doing? Yeah, we just had the worst year in franchise history. Real good look there. Oof, not good. Not good.
My odds makers for you.
Okay, what do we got?
What are the chances that both MJ Melendez and Salvador Perez are still on the roster after the trade deadline?
I don't think they just ship Salvi off just to ship him off, but I don't know about MJ's kind of the same situation. What honestly the Royals are hoping for is MJ Melendez to get hot. And then you trade MJ Melendez. Say, instead of MJ Melendez, a outfielder who's got some pop, who can get on base because he does draw walks. We want that version, but a pitcher. That's the whole thought process. We'll trade you for a same type of guy who's a pitcher. So I'll say that they're both off the roster.
That they're both on the
both
roster.
on the roster. That they're both on the roster at the trade deadline. I'll say something like 70%. I don't see maybe even 80%. I don't see Sal being traded because I think that would be that's just such bad business. But I think MJ could. So both, I'll say 80%.
I want to go a little higher and say like 85. I just don't think that they can dump Salvador Perez and then go turn around and ask for however much billions, millions of dollars they're asking for a stadium. And also, not only is Perez an icon, but he's also literally your best player.
Yeah. Alrighty. What are the odds that the Heat win the NBA Finals? It's 1-1.
I'll go with 33%.
33,
which
okay.
is about what the Heat shot from 3 in the regular season, as opposed to like the 90% they're shooting in the playoffs.
Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me. It's just very interesting how it happened. How the team that averaged the least amount of points per game of any team in the regular season has a chance to win the finals. It's just interesting. I'll say 33% out of respect for Heat culture and Eric Spoelstra.
I'm going to go with 20%. I still think the Nuggets win it. I don't see the Heat winning 4 games to the Nuggets 3. Now, do I think this could go to 6 games? Much more so? Yes. I thought the Nuggets would win it in 5. They still obviously can, but losing at home's a big deal. But I still don't think the Heat have the Jimmies and Joes to get it done. I just don't. This will be the most incredible 3-point shooting series in the NBA Finals if they do. So I can't. I gotta go with like 20%. I don't think it's that close. I really don't. That'll do it for a little odds makers. Coming up next, the Kansas City Chiefs. Are we not talking about a wide receiver on the Chiefs enough? Hint, it isn't Justin Ross. We'll get to that next. Welcome back into Mic'd Up. Jake Levon along with Kyle Manthe with you. Do want to I want to get into a little bit of the Kansas City Chiefs And are we not talking enough about a wide receiver on this team? And no, his name is not Justin Ross. Okay. This here is the top 10 pass catchers by expectation. Okay. Like what you did versus what you were expected of yourself. Okay. Travis Kelce, right? We expected Kelce to get 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, right? You expected that. So here are the top 10 according to their expected numbers, if you will. I'm not going to get into the details. It's catch rate over expected. Okay. Terry McLaurin. If you think about it, makes sense, right? Terry McLaurin. He's putting up numbers with the Commanders. Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell. Exactly. Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs had an outstanding year in 2022. Did you expect 1,500 yards out of Stephon Diggs? I don't know if I did. I really don't. Devonta Smith, no question for the Eagles. The Eagles, everybody talks about A.J. Brown. Devonta Smith, I think, is almost just as good. Really good player, like Devonta Smith. T. Higgins. Jamar Chase was injured a little bit this year, and he had a really good season. Number 5. All right. Cooper Kupp. Now, he was hurt, but when it comes to up to that point, he was incredible. He was catching balls left and right. The top 3, Mike Williams for the Chargers. Same kind of situation. Number 2, George Pickens, the rookie. Caught a bunch of his targets and honestly performed at a much higher rate with Kenny Pickett as the quarterback, right? Number 1, and I can't believe this is true, but then when you stop and think about it, all right, I kind of understand it. Number 1, Richie James, the Kansas City Chiefs. That's right. It says here, when the graphic detailing these rankings posted, the internet just might burn to the ground. In a league filled with superstars at the receiver position, James is likely among the last players anyone have expected to land atop a receiving ranking. His placement here fits the narrative that the Giants built in 2022, when they exceeded expectations by a significant margin. James was among those who benefited the most, setting career-high marks in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Case in point, in Richie James's career, played with the San Francisco Giants, 9 receptions for 130 yards, 1 touchdown, his rookie year. His second year, 6 receptions, 165 yards, 1 touchdown. 2020, 23 receptions, 394 yards, 1 touchdown. Did not play in 2021. And then last year, he got 70 targets, caught 57 balls for 570 yards and 4 touchdowns. A catch percentage of 80%. So when the ball was thrown to Richie James by Daniel Jones, he caught it 80% of the time. Just to give you an example, Juju Smith-Schuster, okay? Last year, Juju Smith-Schuster had 101 targets, caught 78 balls. His catch percentage was 77%. Richie James was almost 82%, okay? That's with Daniel Jones. You want to talk about overachieving. And that is the interesting topic when it comes to Richie James. Is he a underrated wide receiver or just he overachieved 1 year? It says here, last season was the first year in which James reached any of the benchmarks needed to qualify for this list. His catch rate over expected was better than any other receiver who met these criteria. He helped quarterbacks targeting him post a 119 passer rating, the third best mark of any pass catcher on this list. He had 70 targets and only 13 were incompletions. James is not a household name, but that's the beauty of this. He earned a move to Kansas City where he'll have a golden opportunity to boost his profile to a greater degree. Did he overachieve or is he underrated? If you're able to do 57 receptions, great hands, you catch the football, you have a little bit of wiggle to you, yards after the catch, you can get into the end zone, all on just 70 targets. Either you need to get more targets and they didn't use them enough, or you know what? This was the anomaly year for Richie James. This was the year that Richie James went, ready for this? I'm going to cross, wait. Was this the 2019 year of Hunter Dozier for Richie James last year? The good news is that the Chiefs did not give Richie James a 4-year, $30 million deal. They gave him a 1-year deal worth about a guaranteed $1 million. You want to talk about hoping that he is the underrated guy and he has a good year this year, and then you probably won't keep him. But the Chiefs didn't double down and say, hey, we'll give you a 2-year deal. Nope. We'll give you a 1-year deal. We're not going to stretch our situation, but he could end up being the sneaky guy who makes the impact. You know, they talk about breakout years and all that kind of stuff. Kadarius Toney's the guy for the breakout year because he's expected to get a lot of looks, a lot of targets, that type of thing. But Richie James could be a wide receiver who is the sneaky production guy. Had 600 yards, 4 touchdowns with Daniel Jones. I'm a Daniel Jones. I don't want to say hater. I just think that they're investing in a guy whose his number one quality is running. He caught 4 touchdowns last year. Richie James did for the Giants. Kyle, I'm going to ask you something. How many touchdown passes did Daniel Jones throw? Just in the regular season.
I think it's right around 20 or just below it. Like 18, 19.
He threw 15. That means Richie James was responsible for over a third of them, essentially. A little under a third. Caught 4 of them. The number one wide receiver for the Giants was Darius Slayton, 724 yards. He was tied with Saquon Barkley with the most receptions. So either they didn't use Richie James enough, he overachieved, and what could he do with the Kansas City Chiefs? That's why I think Richie James is the guy that people need to go, what can he do? Not Justin Ross or John Ross or Justin Watson. To me, the most interesting guys for the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming year on the wide receiver spot are Kadarius Toney, Richie James, and Rashee Rice. I know what MVS is going to do. Sky Moore, I mean, if you want to throw in Sky Moore at that point in time, there's a lot of, I wonder what can they do? They're all going to get opportunities. Watson, to me, is going to be, the 5th guy or the 6th guy, to be honest with you, Justin Watson. But Kadarius Toney knows number one, Sky Moore, Richie James, MVS, and then Rashee Rice. But no one's talking about Richie James. Not hearing anything about it. Didn't have that, off season. Oh wow, Justin Watson, how fast is this guy? Where'd this guy come from? Remember when Mahomes said that? So maybe it's either one, he's underrated, and this is a great find by the Chiefs, or you know what? That was the Hunter Dozier year. He outperformed the rest of the back of his football card. Wow, great year in 2022. That was the outlier year. That'll be interesting to see coming up because it has a great chance of getting opportunities. So Richie James, number one on, well, we didn't think that was going to happen. And it makes sense. It really does. Coming up next, we'll finish things off with the mic drop. You got for our mic drop?
My mic drop today is that I really wish we had been able to see and hear what Travis Kelce would have said at the White House yesterday if Patrick Mahomes hadn't intercepted him.
Do you think that was staged?
It kind of looks like it, but I also think maybe not.
I know.
It'd be a weird thing to stage.
It would, but it has kind of the vibe of, like, hey, I've always wanted to stand up here and talk in front of the presidential seal. And, was he going to give, you got to fight for your right to party at the White House or something like that? And Mahomes being the guy. I will never forget that. Mahomes when he's getting interviewed after the AFC title game. I just want to thank God, my teammates, and all of a sudden Travis Kelce comes in, oh yeah, Burrow ahead, you know what? This is Mahomes' house. I can't believe the PGA Tour did an about face this quickly. This is a stunning move on just what they dug their heels in and then went the opposite way. Coming up next, we got 580 Sports Talk here on 580 WWW.